All right, let's just jump right into it. When you think of a monster, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Is it a vampire in a cape? A slasher in a hockey mask? Yeah, those are the classics for sure. But what are we really afraid of here in the 2020s? That answer has completely changed. And with it, the whole idea of what makes a horror icon has evolved into something way more personal and honestly, way more terrifying.
So, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go on a little journey. We'll start with the old guard of fear. The monsters we could actually see and touch. Then, we'll dive into how horror got inside our heads and how it started to become a mirror for our own anxieties. We'll check out the new architecture of dread that filmmakers are building today, and then we'll wrap up by asking that huge question, what's going to haunt us next?
For decades, horror was simpler. Now, I don't mean it was easy, but the concept was simpler. The threat was always external. It was a creature, a killer, some kind of monster that you could point at, run away from, and, if you were lucky, defeat. It was something tangible.
And this quote about Dracula, it just nails that classic archetype. It's talking about a codified monster, a figure with a clear shape, a set of rules you could understand, and a real physical presence. You knew what he was, you knew his deal, and you knew what could hurt him. He was kind of the patriarch for a whole generation of fears that we could wrap our heads around.
And this slide right here perfectly breaks down that shift. On one side, you've got your classic monster, an external, physical thing. But look at the other side. That's the modern monster. It's moved. It's not outside anymore. It's inside. The threat is psychological. The form is totally abstract. And the examples are things you can't just stab with a stake. We're talking trauma, grief, social injustice. The monster has literally moved from the shadows into our own minds.
So this shift inward, it wasn't just some tiny tweak. It was a fundamental rewiring of the entire genre. Filmmakers started to realize that the scariest place wasn't some old haunted house. It was the haunted mind.
And this whole concept actually has a name, psychological dread. It's not about the jump scare. Like the slide says, it's all about using supernatural stuff as stand-ins, as allegories for our own internal struggles. The real terror comes from the atmosphere, from that feeling of inescapable personal pain.
And you have absolutely seen this brought to life in some of the most talked about films of the last 10 years. In The Babadook, that monster isn't just some creature from a pop-up book. It is the mother's unprocessed grief. In Hereditary, the horror is the trauma that gets passed down through a family like a curse. And in his house, the ghosts are literal specters of the refugee experience. See, the monster's no longer just a monster, it's a full-blown manifestation of our deepest pain.
But this evolution, it didn't just stop with personal trauma. As our collective anxieties got more and more complex, horror started to reflect not just our individual minds, but the fears of our entire society.
And this is the question that really defines this next wave. What happens when the evil isn't some invading force or a personal demon, but something that's woven into the very fabric of the world we've built? What if the monster is us?
This brings us to what's called social commentary horror. It's a subgenre where filmmakers are using all the tools of horror, the tension, the dread, the monstrous, to dissect real-world problems. It's horror being used as a scalpel to critique society itself.
And the examples here are just so powerful. Jordan Peele's Get Out isn't just a scary movie, it is a terrifying breakdown of systemic racism. Host, which was filmed entirely over Zoom during the pandemic, literally turned the tech that was supposed to connect us into a haunted cage. And then you have films like Annihilation that tap into our growing anxiety about the environment, imagining what horrific things might happen when we destroy our own planet.
So, where does all of that leave us now? Well, today's horror landscape is this fascinating mix of all these trends, with both brand new voices and legendary masters pushing the genre into some really wild, uncharted territory.
I mean, just look at the slate for 2026. You've got Nia DaCosta with 28 Years Later, and she's not just focusing on the virus, but on the rotting sickness of the survivors. That's all psychological. The legend Sam Raimi is doing a character-driven thriller, and you have Robert Eggers bringing his insane period authenticity to a werewolf movie. It's not just about monsters anymore. It's about these auteur-driven projects that explore every single shade of fear.
And this whole evolution isn't just stuck in the movie theater. Actually, television has become one of the most exciting places for long-form elevated horror, giving these really complex themes the room they need to breathe.
Television is giving us what some people are calling prestige dread. In 2026, we're going to see sci-fi body horror about the deadly price of perfection in the beauty.
We're getting a character-focused reimagining of Carrie from a modern master, Mike Flanagan. And the Dupper Brothers are exploring the fears of getting older in The Burrows. Episodic storytelling is letting creators go deeper into these ideas than ever before.
So ultimately, what this all shows is that horror is no longer just lowbrow entertainment. Like this quote says, it's matured, it's become this vital tool for critiquing our own world and for imagining different ways to be. It's finally getting the critical respect it deserves because it's doing some of the most important work in modern storytelling.
Which leaves us with one final, kind of haunting thought. The monsters we create are always a reflection of the things we're afraid of. From the vampire in his castle to the trauma in our heads and the injustice in our society. So if horror really is a mirror, the most terrifying question isn't what's on the screen, it's what tomorrow's monsters are going to reveal about us.